So the supplies that we'll need today is going to be a darning needle, a pair of scissors, crochet hook. I'm using a size 5.25 millimeter, and then some yarn. Today I'm going to be using this medium blue, and it's a 4-weight in acrylic. So gather your supplies and we'll get this project started. Okay, so we are going to use a slipknot to start our project. And then to start your corner to corner or C2C blanket, what you're going to do is chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you're going to count back to the 4th stitch. So we have 1, 2, 3, and this will be our 4th one. And we're going to put a double crochet into that 4th chain. And then into the next stitch, we're going to put another double crochet. And then you should have one more stitch left down here, and you're going to end that with a double crochet also. So that quickly, we already have our first little block, okay? So that is going to be the very corner of our blanket. So now you're going to flip your project and chain 6 again. And you're going to do the same thing, count to the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And put a double crochet into that 4th chain. And do the same into the next one. And in your last double crochet space, that is how you're going to end that block as well. Okay, so it looks kind of goofy right now. And so we need to connect these two here. So you're going to go into that first block that we did. And there's an opening at the end here for our last chaining. And you're going to make a slip stitch into there to connect those two. It looks goofy right now, but I promise it'll work itself out. So now after you slip stitch, you are going to chain 3. And then into the space here that we slip stitched into, you are going to put 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, oops, I lost some of my yarn, and 3. Okay, so that's how we have it now. It kind of almost looks like a heart. And you're going to flip your work. So that was row 2, and now we are going to start row 3. And you're going to do the same thing. Chain your 6. And then count back 4 spaces. So right into this one here, we're going to put a double crochet. And the next one, a double crochet. And finish your last stitch with a double crochet. Okay. And then into our next block right here is where we need to make our slip stitch. So hook in, grab the yarn, pull through, and pull straight through that loop. Okay, you connected those. Now chain 3. And then into where we put the slip stitch, you are going to place 3 double crochet. Okay, And then we need to connect our next block. So we need to do that with a slip stitch into the top there. And they're connected. And now you just chain 3. And then in that space, we put 3 double crochet. Okay, so that is row 3 done. And now we flip our work again and chain 6. And you can slow me down if you need to or pause it. So now that we have our chain 6, you just count back the 4. And then you put a double crochet into that first one. A double crochet into the next one. And end that block with another double crochet into the last stitch. Okay, so we're going to do this the entire length of our blanket. You just keep doing the exact same pattern over and over until you get the width that you like. And then when you figure out how big that you like it and you're satisfied with the size of it, you are going to then do it a little bit different to decrease and start closing off your blanket, okay? So what I mean by that is, as you can see here, this was our first block here. Okay, this is where we started our blanket. And the C2C or corner to corner blanket grows this way, okay, kind of in a triangle shape. And then once you start decreasing it, we're going to start closing it like so, okay? So decreasing is a little bit different, but as you're making this blanket increasing, it's all going to be the same pattern that I just showed you, like I said, into the size that you wanted, okay? So I'm going to do mine by 12 inches by 12 inches because I do donations for a organization that's on Facebook. They might be on other social medias as well, but I know them on Facebook, and they're called Making Bundles for Babies, something like that, Bundles for Babies. And so they do donations of hats and blankets for the babies in the hospital that are stillborn. So that is the size I'm going to make for this project. But like I said, go ahead and do it as big as you want, and then come back and meet me once you have the size that you want, and we will start closing this square up then, okay? So finish up how you want to do it, and then come back to this video. Okay, so now, like I said, I have gotten to the width that I need for my project, and we started here, like I said, and we widened it to the desired amount that we need. Okay, so I'm on my last increase row here, and I stopped right before finishing this row, and I'm going to show you how we start decreasing our rows now. So this is my last normal block that we've been doing. Just pop in my 3 double crochet on this last one. Okay, so I have one more block on this row. And instead of doing what we were doing earlier, where we do the slip stitch and then do the 3 chains and then the 3 double crochet, what we're just going to do to start decreasing is we are going to do the slip stitch, and that's it. Okay, so now we flip it to start our first whole decrease row. And instead of chaining the 6 here, what we're going to do is work into these top 3 chains here from this previous block. And we are going to slip stitch in all 3 of those. So here's our first one, and slip stitch. Our second chain here, and slip stitch. And our third last chain, slip stitch that. So now we are at the top of this block here. Now we're going to chain 3. And then right here, in between our chains here, is where we're going to put 3 double crochet. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to go to our next block here and just do how we were doing before. So slip stitch that to join the 2, chain 3, and then 3 double crochet into that space there, like we have been doing. So really for this entire blanket, all you're switching up for the increasing is that first block of each row. And then once you start decreasing, you just change that first row or that first block again in that row. And then all these other ones are the same that we've been doing. So I call this the inside of our blocks. So the insides of blocks will always be the same, like I said. And then once we get to the end for the decreasing, again, all we're going to do is slip stitch into there. And that's it. And that's all we do. We flip it. Okay, so now as you can see here, if we get off our diamond shape and lay it flat, you can see this is still our side here where it's kind of increasing. And then we have our flat side, and now this is where it's starting to go up and close this area here that we don't have yet, okay? So this will start growing up. This will stay the same, but this one will start going up now and connect in the end here, okay? So this is where we started, and this is where we're going to end it, okay? So our last block will be up here to fill in that last space. So this is like a nice easy project. As you saw, depending on what size blanket you made for this project, the increasing rows in the beginning are super fast just because it's such short rows. The middle part here is always going to be the longest project. And then once the rows start narrowing down again, it'll go faster once we get along here. So I'll go along and do a couple rows like this with you. So moving along on these inside blocks, you just, like I said, slip stitch and then chain the 3. And then throw in your 3 double crochet into each block. Okay? So it's a very repetitive, mindless project. I like it also just because it's a nice sturdy blanket, no matter what size you use. So if it's a baby blanket or a regular size bed blanket that you use, or a couch throw, whatever you use it for, it's a nice sturdy blanket. It's not as airy and flimsy as some patterns can be. And I think that it works up fairly quick. The middle sections where it's the longest part, those can be a little tedious and long, but once you start decreasing again, it goes super quick once those rows start getting smaller again. So finish your row here. This part you should know pretty well because you've grown your whole blanket with this center stitching here. And then once we get to the end of the row again, meet me back here. Okay, so I got one more block here to do on this row. And then just to go over, we are at our last block of the row, so all we do is slip stitch. That's it. Turn your work, and now on this side, you're going to slip stitch the top 3 here. So 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain. Those are the 3 that we need to slip stitch into for our decrease row. Okay, and after you've done the 3 slip stitches, you chain 3. And then right into that opening there is where you're going to place 3 double crochet. And then slip stitch into the next block to connect. You chain your 3. And then 3 double crochet into that opening. Okay, so finish decreasing all of your rounds and then meet me back here again and I will show you how to finish off this blanket. Alright, so I am on my last row here and we're just going to continue on like we have been. And I'll just show you how we close it up for the ending here, okay? Alright, so that was my last block. And then once we get here, we just slip stitch into that last one. And that's it. So I just chain 1 and then I snip my work here. Leave a long enough tail. Pull that through. Let me get rid of this yarn here. And now I just take my needle and put my yarn onto that. And I just sew it through a few times so that it's nice and snug and stays all together here. Just hide that tail a little. Okay. Let me cut that part off. And then we're going to do the same where we started our project. Depending if you switch colors and stuff like that, obviously you might have more tails to weave in here at the end, but I kept this one nice and simple, just one color. So I just had the starting and ending to weave in here at the end. Okay, so this is how mine turned out. Not sure, yeah, you can see that all the way in there. And so that's why it's called corner to corner, or C2C for short, because you start in one corner and then you end in the other corner, okay? So I hope you like this project. This is one of my go-to easy, simple, quick projects for blankets. It is actually the first blanket I ever learned how to do. And when I first did it, I messed up super bad on the decrease. And in fact, I still have that blanket. I keep it just as a memory to myself of how rough it was when I first started. So I hope it's going smoother for you. And I actually am planning on doing a blooper video maybe once in the middle of the year, but definitely towards the end of this year. And I do plan on having that. I'm going to showcase that in my blooper video because it is bad. But like I said, I kept it just as a memory, a motivator, all that stuff. So I hope you enjoyed the project, and please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.